And now we have our last session before lunch. And so I'm very, very proud and privileged and honoured to be joined on this stage by the great Professor KehindeAndrews. Round of applause. Now we've introduced a new segment into TNB XPO, which is our provocation. And we have provocation lectures, debates, conversations, and whatnot. And you know, in the future, if any of you guys have something you want us to discuss in the future, please let me know. But this particular subject has been burning me forever. It's been finally I can get this off my chest. So this is this is so cathartic. This is therapeutic, and hopefully you could go with me when I discuss the theme of this provocation and this conversation with Professor Kehinde, and that is killing the white man. Whoa. Okay. Is that all right? And then after that, we're going to go into the psychosis of whiteness. So it's a double barrel. Okay, cool. So basically, you know, 100 years of cinema. I grew up watching the little box in my room, and yeah, I'm being age positive. It was black and white for a while there, and I watched the westerns. I watched Tarzan movies. I watched all of those Al Joseph movies. You know, Mammy, all of that. And I thought, something wrong with this picture. I can't quite put my finger on it. But are we bad? Is there something wrong with black people? Why do we keep on getting killed? Why are we keep on getting lynched? Why are being chased? Who knows? Black and brown bodies, that's all I seem to see. So I'm not a clicker person, but let me see if I can make this work. Do I click, or are you going to move this along for me? Oops. Oh, we'll just leave it like that then. I'll talk, no problem. So,
you can take me there.
So basically, you know, logline is revenge cinema from a marginalised gaze. And you'll see from our brochure, we talk about it as well, for black authors, female authors, that I feel like after 100 years, we are starting to, I'm not saying turn things around, but we have the camera in our hands. And so you see the success of Get Out, you see the success of Promising Young Woman, you see I May Destroy You, but juxtaposed against Baby Reindeer, there could be a question mark there. But I just wanted to set the scene by talking about killing the white man, from my perspective, only for a few minutes. Then, you know, Professor Kehinde will talk about Psychosis of Whiteness, his book and his documentary, and then we will meet in the middle and talk to see how much we are still influenced by the white male gaze, and if there's a bit of a change happening. Is that all right, folks? Yeah. Well, I think I've set the scene. I think I've talked about, like I said, Tarzan. Did anybody remember Tarzan films at all? Yeah. Did he used to do this white man in the jungle, yeah? Give it a say, yeah. What? That's me. That's what you're taking out from me as well. Man, woman, Jane, boy. No, sir. No. Then, if that wasn't enough, Mr. King of the Jungle, you're taking some Africans and you're throwing them off cliffs. And that's okay with, no, not my watch. And even those Africans were probably white people with a tar on them or, you know, shoe polish. So, yeah, that was that first trauma. Then you had your Al Jolson with his shoe polish, and then what was on his hair for afro? Was that a carpet? I had no idea, still to this day. And you had your westerns, you had your John Ford, you had your John Wayne, all of that, chasing poor brown people, Native Americans up the hills, down hills, telling them to get off the land, and they were the heroes. So, yeah, I don't know if you could share that trauma, and if some of the younger generation have a version of that. Do any of you have a version of that, do you think? Well, we'll talk, we'll ask questions. But yeah, thank you for letting me release that rage. It's been pent up for too many decades, and I feel a lot better now. So I'm going to pass the mic to Professor Kehinde, because I will not stop, and then we will meet in the middle, like I said. Round of applause.
All right, you okay, everyone? Yeah, all right, so thanks for that opening. I think provocation is important, because I think one of the things that we often tend to do is we like to have comfortable conversations. Right? If you're thinking about something like racism, particularly on screen, it's just not a comfortable conversation. Like the trauma that you felt growing up watching this stuff. I mean, I'm too young to have watched the black and white minstrel show on television, but it's not really that. There's only a couple of years before I was born that you actually had white people blacking up on mainstream TV. It was the biggest TV show in the whole entire country, right? I mean, we grew up with no like Desmond's appointment viewing because there's no black people anywhere else, right? Like having to. No, I'm not gonna say that. You know what? I was gonna ask that. It's all right. Sorry. No, you know what? Forget it. Provocation, right? Even now, we have to like big up people like Lenny Henry because there's so few of anybody else, right? Like that's because there's so few of us, right? And so when we're thinking about film and where we go generally and racism more broadly, we have to be provocative. It can't be a comfortable conversation, right? Like if later on, they're going to screen Psychosis of Whiteness,
Correct.
which I wrote a book about later. But the whole thing it came out of was sitting there watching these two movies. One was Amazing Grace. I don't know if you've seen this. Amazing Grace was 2007 to celebrate the 200th anniversary of the abolition of the slave trade. They made a film about William Wilberforce, the white man who apparently made you free. Right? There are literally two black people in the whole film. And it's just this nonsense film where you're like, what is going on? And then the second film, only two big budget movies about slavery in the UK history, right? Premier slave trading nation, slavery is like the fabric of the country, and we managed to produce two films about slavery. One of them was Amazing Grace, and the other one was Belle. I haven't seen Belle. Belle's even worse. I mean, I didn't think it would get worse. It actually got worse. Right? Worse, because Belle's written and directed by a black woman, two different black women made this film. Which, anyway, so I'm watching Belle, and Belle is about Belle Elizabeth Dido, who is probably the only enslaved African who was brought up in a mansion house because her dad was a lord, and she grew up in this big like Jane Austen type thing. And Amara Santi, who made the film, she said, I wanted to make a movie where young black girls thought they had a Jane Austen romance, right? And thought slavery was the way to do that, right? And the whole film is just this complete distortion. Right, and I'm watching it getting mad. It is trauma, right? It should be trauma because when they take our history and completely and utterly distort it, it should make us mad, right? So this is actually where the idea of Psychosis of Whiteness came from, and the argument I'm making is it's pretty easy to see. I think if you look at movies is a perfect example actually. The delusions of whiteness and how utterly nonsensical they are. Like if you look at Trump, everything's happening there. If you look at actually Keir Starmer, I mean, come on, let's be real. Not that much better. If you look at the rationalizations they have to do to keep us down, we know they don't make sense, right? We know they don't. They know we are human beings, yet they enslave us. So they have to pretend. They have to convince themselves that we're monkeys, so they can treat us like cattle, right? So there's a complete delusional nature about it. The importance of movies, media, and this is why I call it psychosis. Psychosis has two elements. One is the delusional way of thinking, which you can see all the time. The other thing is hallucinations. So if you're in a psychosis, you have hallucinations which reinforce your delirium. That's what the movies are. They are reinforcing the delirium of whiteness. So if I watch a movie like Belle, which is telling me that actually class is more important than race, actually gender is more important than race, hey, slavery wasn't all that bad. You could have this love story, and that's... I mean, honestly, that's what the movie's telling you. If you haven't seen it, please don't watch it. Like, don't let this be a way to, just ignore it. In fact, if you watch Psychosis of Whiteness later, we just clipped out lots of the bits of the movie, so you can. I've spared you any trauma from watching that film. But what that does is it reinforces the psychosis. Same way with Tarzan, Planet of the Apes, King Kong, all of these things. Oh my God, King Kong, all of these things. The purpose of it is to reinforce the psychosis. Right? So media actually really matters. So when we're thinking about, and this is why I think it's important, something like Killing the White Man and thinking about where we go, now we have a bit more access and we can make stuff and there's more independent ways creating as much more of a democratic space. The question is, what kind of movies you're going to make, right? Are you going to make, I mean, obviously don't make Belle. Please don't do that. But also don't make like, don't, there's no point in making a movie that's not making people mad. If you're making a movie about us, if you're making a movie about racism, if you're making a movie about anything like that, it should make people upset. It should make people angry. If it doesn't, don't do it. That would be my argument. Don't do it. The idea that we need to have this consensus, all come together, nah, bond it. We need to be honest, and honestly, we don't have real depictions. So even though there's even, think, like I said, 2 movies in the UK about slavery. So there is no British movie that properly depicts the horrors that was done to us. It doesn't exist. Right? You just get these made-for-TV nonsense where white people save you, and yeah, Amara Santi's really. We should have a whole discussion about Amara Santi because all of the movies are problematic.
It's a German Nazi.
Yeah, the woman, the black woman falls in love with a Nazi. She literally has a movie where a black woman falls in love with a Nazi. That's psychosis, I promise you. But yeah, that's I guess I'll stop there because we have a conversation. But really thinking about making films, it should be challenging, right? Things like Get Out. It's disturbing, right? It's supposed to be disturbing. That's how you should feel when you leave the theatre. You should feel a bit like, I'm not really comfortable. Because that's what we need. That's the kind of energy we need. Not the green books, not the help. But yeah, none of that. You need to be and actually, that is a good way to pierce through the psychosis, right? That is a good way to actually make people think and challenge and take it from there. Anyway, we have a conversation, so I don't want to talk too much.
I'm feeling better already, Professor. I feel like having a doctor's appointment, actually. Right. Anybody have any questions to kick off?
Hi. Lovely to be in your presence, Professor. I've seen you on the breakfast, TV stuff and all that. And you seem to be the go-to gentleman when they have certain discussions and stuff like that. So power to you for being able to navigate, those spaces. I was aware of Amara Santi as well. I've been in their presence and about 20 years ago and having sort of these kind of themed questions, concerning race. And I was woefully, disappointed in that. I don't think she realizes, or whether she realizes or not and doesn't care, what is happening, the system, and how we can inadvertently help prop it up. And I suspect this is what she's continuing to do. I'm not surprised, actually, at her output. I haven't had a conversation with her about 20 years ago. So, do you think, perhaps this is provocative, seeing as we're talking about provocations and all that, her partner of choice is a non-black person, okay? And I think, forgive me if I'm wrong, is he has a position in a film biz or something? I'm not sure, but I feel like I want to say that. Do you think that has a bearing on the kind of work that she produces, which is problematic, as you've identified? I think it's problematic as well. And I want to be provocative, do you think when we have partners...
We're going there.
Yeah, that do not...
Okay.
Go in.
You should
Straight in.
That do not... Yeah.
Stop beating around that bush. Come on.
How much of an influence that partner has when you're talking about, race, and whether, in fact, we lose credibility as artists when we're trying to navigate those racial waters when your partner... Anyway, you know what I'm saying. Okay.
Right. You go first.
Well,
because I'm back to you.
Well, I mean, somebody I was talking about, and they said all of her movies are swirl movies.
Yes.
Every movie is a swirl movie. That's how it's put to be. Every single one, it is, right? And I would say, look, it's not... Actually, I have a Malcolm X book coming out in May, and I actually made a documentary about this Malcolm X book. And one of the things, there's a whole chapter called That Wicked Race of Devils, because again, trying to be provocative. Malcolm was very provocative on these things. And what he says, there's actually a number of quotes where he says, look, if a black person has a white partner, that's fine, but you can't speak for me. Like, you just cannot speak for me. And it's not the white partner influencing them. Look, everything's political. That's how I put it. Everything is political. And so my politics is black, 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 black. So when I look for a partner, it's black, 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 black. Right? Not anything against white people or anything like that, but it's black. And so if your politics is black, your partner's going to be black. So if your partner's not black and your partner's white, that's telling me something about your politics. It just does, automatically. That's not, we don't have to be anti-interracial relationships, but we then have to say, well, your politics is probably a bit off. And then when you constantly make swirl movies, constantly make these terrible, I mean, Belle's one of the worst movies ever made. And actually, probably not as bad as the black woman falling in love with a Nazi. I think that's gonna, I've never seen it, I will never watch it, I don't know. But that is indicative of something. That makes sense? So again, I do think it's a fair criticism because the personal is political, right? And so, like I said, if I turned up here with a white partner, you should not listen to me. And I mean that in a real way, because that means that something has changed in me. In a real way, in a very, very, very real way. If I suddenly, a black woman had a black wife, she passed away from cancer, and I went through some midlife crisis, I don't know, came with a white partner, something would have to have happened to me, honestly, promise you. Not that there's anything wrong with white women, but it'll mean that my politics have changed. And I can say this personally, because I've said it in Psychosis, the Whiteness book. Back when I was in school, I went through a proper Banty bar phase. Proper coconut, chocolate ice, all that. Like, honestly, like, people who went to school with me are like, why are you doing all this black stuff? Like, when you were like 14, you didn't want nothing to do with black people, right? Because I went to this school where deeply racist, all the black kids got treated like they were stupid. If you're black, you're in the bottom sets. So in my 11-year-old head, I'm like, well, I should be white, right? I gotta have white friends, white this, white everything, white music, white women, white. Honestly, I hated my hair at one point, about 13, 14 years old. Right? It was all white. And that's a problem. I was in a bad space. And then as soon as I kind of, I read Stokely Speaks, From Black Power to Pan-Africanism, all came back, it was fine, snapped out of it. Thankfully, I had my phase when I was 13, not 30, so I moved out of it. But when it clicked back, everything completely changed. And again, it's not anti-white, nothing against white people, white women, nothing against that at all. But my complete outlook changed. So for me to then go back and pick a white partner, my outlook would have to have changed. Everything is political. So I'm with Malcolm on this. If you have a white partner, that's fine for you, that's your personal decision, but don't come to me politically or culturally, because I'm gonna look at you suspicious. And I think that's a fair analysis.
I think so. And, we have great black leaders who are mixed race, like Malcolm X and Bob Marley and Akala now and people like that. So it's not about falling in love with a white partner, but if you feel like you needed that white partner for acceptance or they're the only ones accepting you, I'm getting that vibe. I'm only speculating. But being a dark-skinned black woman and having white men fetishize you or find you more attractive than the black brother who seems to be going towards light skin, the lighter the Beyonce, the better, then you know what I mean? It's giving you mixed signals, it's messing with your mind. So she may say to herself, I have to keep on justifying my relationship, and that feeds into her storytelling and her narrative. So that's my little sort of point of view on that. So thanks for the question. Next question, please. Right, if we could make it snappy, because this might, catch on fire here. So, you next, my dear.
How can I put this? Okay, so we're talking about, we rarely see creatives of our color, at the top telling our stories from a marginalized gaze, right? So what do you think about the types of creatives that kind of depict a certain narrative, a negative narrative? I'm going to say it, Tyler Perry.
Come on!
What do you think about that? That's my question.
Okay, we're going there. I was going to say Steve McQueen. I thought that's where you were going. Oh, we could go there. We could talk about partners again. We could go there. 12 years a slave. 12 years. What did you do to my woman? My girl. What did you make? My bags. You made Chitwa did what to who? You gave her an Oscar, but still, what did you do? See, the trauma's still there. Right, now I can't stop. Tyler Perry, please can you take Tyler Perry for me? I beg.
Oh, good. All right, thinking about Malcolm again, so obviously I'm going to use a lot of Malcolm because I just wrote a Malcolm book.
Rocky now.
And look, the reality is there is always those people who will sell out for white supremacy. That's Tyler Perry, that's what he does. Let's be honest. That is a coon show. There's nothing else but to call it a coon show. And again, provocative, we need this kind of language. Because cooning's a real thing. Right? If you think about what cooning was back in the day, it was white performers blacking up their faces, doing this grotesque minstrel show, all these stereotypes, etc., etc., etc. They can't do that no more, so what do? They get Tyler Perry and some black people to dance around in these stereotypes and sell you back to you. It's a coon show. We see it all the time. And we have to call that out. Because diversity, now with diversity, you're getting lots of black people in these different things, doing this different stuff. A lot of it's coon show. And it's not just the Tyler Perrys. I can't watch one more film, black British film, black American film about gangs. Why is everything about gangs? Everything's about drugs. What was that? Supercell. Supercell was a really good idea. Why they got to put gangs?
I couldn't understand it either.
They don't need. It has to be gangs, right?
Yeah.
Coon show. And that unfortunately is going to be, that's kind of, it's easy, right? If you're a filmmaker, you're a young up-and-coming filmmaker and you want to get something made, cooning's the best way to do it. Because BBC Channel 4, they don't want to hear no serious thing about Nanny of the Maroons. Like, they don't want to hear that. They want to see gangs, drugs, stereotype. So that's something that, if you're going into the industry, you have to be really careful about, because that temptation is always going to be there. That's what sells.
I swear to you, last night I was having I almost broke out into a fight with one of them days. And I was saying that film, people say, oh, Scissor and Kiki, ooh, yeah, black girl power, ooh. But, it was some stereotypes. You had a Nigerian Uche person who was some sort of slumlord. It had a man with like a 10-inch appendage. You know where I'm going. It was, what? And one of the filmmakers on the panel said, oh, this is what you have to do to make it. I'll say, Ross, okay. Is that what you said to Jordan Peele when they made Get Out? You know what I mean? So, okay, cool. So, it is complicated with Tyler Perry because I love Tyler Perry. I love the very first Medea, which was called, thank you. Love that one. But then, why are you doing it 100 times again? But I do, again, understand because I remember Oprah Winfrey, when she started her own network, Power to Oprah, she was doing all the sort of cerebral black programming. It was all good stuff, but she had no viewers. Yeah. And then she realised, I need a black EastEnders. And that's what she brought in Tyler Perry. He brought that, escapism, trashy stuff, trash TV, because every now and again we want that. But it seems to go too far. And then you see all these women who are beaten up by their man and, or go to jail for their man or something like that for their man. And so then the production value is a bit questionable. But then he pulls out the 6 AAA, and I think, Tyler, come back to us. Come back. There's a redemption arc here. You can do it. You've got it. And so maybe you had to make compromises. Maybe because you built Atlantic, the studios in Atlanta, you are putting money and paying black people who weren't working, giving them regular jobs, so it's not black or white. So I do understand and I do appreciate the compromise some of our black brothers and sisters are doing there for us. So there is judgment, but there is also justification behind the judgment. Thank you so much. Who's next? All right, that was a sharp hand. You go.
So you were talking about your trauma with watching stuff and having that come back on you. And I had that a little bit. I moved to Kenya when I was 6, and a lot of my family were older, and they'd hand me gollywogs or stuff like that, and I'd be like, "Is this what you see me like? Like, is that who you think I am?" And then my nana would tell me I look like the wild women from Borneo, and what that stuff. But the thing that mostly affected me was that the people that I was around I was the darkest person they'd ever seen. And so their only perception of Africa was on water aid adverts. Obviously they're necessary, but I'd get so many people would come up to me and be like, "Oh my gosh, so you do wear clothes in Africa?" Ooh. And there's water in Africa, and I'd be having a sip of water and they'd be like, "I didn't know you guys did that." And it's just although adverts like that are necessary, I just feel
comic relief stuff.
Yeah, we need something to balance it out, because it pushes a really weird push of Africa in general.
Yes. I mean, I remember when David Lammy pushed back. I can't remember what that lady's name is. There was some sort of comic relief campaign. I know, again, Sir Lenny Henry's part of that. I think he's retired from that now, but you always used to get the poor white person carrying a black child on their hip, and they're looking emaciated and stuff like that. And David Lammy was trying to bring it up in Parliament, or try to tell that particular woman. She does that documentary. I can't remember her name now.
Oh, Stacey Dooley.
Yes. Yeah. And she couldn't get it. She wouldn't get it. It was a fragility. She was defensive. And I'm just hoping... And I think also that guy behind it who does Notting Hill, what's his name again? Richard Curtis. He sort of semi-apologised for kind of reaffirming those images. And because you can... I think the fear is, if you have a healthy-looking black African child going to school, you're not going to get any money, you're not going to get any donations and stuff like that. But I think it does much more harm than good. And this money that goes to aid to Africa is just a drop in the ocean from the aid that the government gives in general. So smoke and mirrors and reaffirming the whole white saviour trope to me. So yeah, and I think it's a shame that you've had to go through that. It's horrible. And I think a lot of us have that memory as well, and it's still out there. But I just hope you could just feed yourself with positive images and know your truth. Because you stand with pride, I hope.
Yeah, and also, I mean, that whole image of it, the whole aid, it's not aid, it's a joke. Right, that whole thing is problematic. Even so images of poverty are important to see, but then there's no context.
Yes.
Right? How did the kids get that poor? The West, right? It's colonialism. There's a whole story you're not telling. It's just saying, look, black people are terrible, look at this. And it really is quite damaging. In fact, my son, we went to Nigeria, and he came back from Nigeria, and the teacher was drawing houses in Africa, and she drew like huts. And he corrected her and said, "No, it's houses. It's proper houses. People got big mansions and things like that." And she had to stop herself because it still happens, right? We still have this really, really, really negative image of Africa. And again, I just read the whole Malcolm book yesterday, so it's all Malcolm. But that's a really important part of keeping us down, because Malcolm says you can't have a negative image of Africa and have a positive image of yourself. Right? So those negative images are there to keep us down, to make us think that we can't do nothing, to make it disempower us. So if we want to have a positive image of ourselves, we have to have a positive image of Africa. And that don't mean ignoring the poverty, because there's lots of poverty, but it's about explaining where it comes from, it's about looking at the wealth, it's about looking at the prosperity, where we go forward. But really, we are told that the basic thing that the West has done to us, and media is massively part of this, is to create what it calls the Negro, right? Someone who has no history, has no civilization, has no culture, is subhuman. And you see when you see those kids with flies in it, that's that image. And that's what's reinforcing it. And we have to do everything we can to not do that. Right?
Excellent. Next question. I need to take a question from the other side of the room, I feel. You go, and then hopefully get you.
Hey, thank you for coming. My question's more to do with... I guess a statement that was made yesterday about in the sales, it said that there's not much of a market in Africa and the Caribbean. And so when we try to tell these stories that are different, how do we navigate sort of making that happen? I don't know if that question makes sense, in the sense that basically the stories that get bought are the gangs and the knives. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
It's difficult because they were telling the truth. It was like this, the FDA distribution session, and they said, the markets in Africa are poor. They're poor markets. There's not enough cinemas in certain African countries as well. So, but we have to play the long game. If we could play the long game and just be strong, and just take the wise words from Rico earlier about organising, we're in a hostile environment. Unless we're going to, go back to where we came from, if they pay our tickets, if they, pay my fare, I'll go tomorrow, yeah. But you're not going to do that, are you? I didn't think so. So until then, we have to suck up all the knowledge, suck up all the skills, take the grants, humble ourselves, but also bit by bit, by coming to events like this, talking to each other, extending that trust, because divide and conquer is real. We've been messed up for so long. We barely give blood. Imagine. If it's difficult to give blood, how are we supposed to build bridges? How are we supposed to build institutions? But bit by bit, I think technology is a great equalizer. Thank God for the internet. This AI, there's bad parts of AI, good parts of AI, but oh God, thank God, Africans were so intelligent. And we know, especially the Nigerians and the Igbos, I'm joking, we know we can tell a ting and make a ting-a-ling at a ting. So I think we have to be strong, be determined, build our world, build our industries. In our little universe and corner, TNBFC, we are building community cinemas, a circuit of community cinemas. Because then we'll see you filmmakers, we see you at the short stage, the pipeline. Yeah? So we then educate our audiences who are watching what's a really good film lately? They've just watched, I'm blanking out, but just had to watch Get Out. And we put a short film of yours before that. And you come to us, you see a good film, and then we take that nationwide. And so, okay, the cinemas may not show it, but your commuter hall may show it. And bit by bit, we contribute to the box office. So it's these little things, increments, and we all do it in our different spheres, and then we relate to our homeland. Many of you, unfortunately not me, you're bilingual. You know what I mean? So when it comes to trade, when it comes to working with the Caribbean or South America or parts of Europe or African countries or Black Hollywood, we do have an advantage. If we can focus on that as well, I think there's hope. So hopefully I've answered your question to a certain extent. Would you like to add to that at all?
Yeah, I think it just really is about different. I was thinking about market different. What does that mean? Like, yeah, if you're selling into mainstream, then yeah, obviously. But we've got Nollywood, right? We've got Tyler Perry's really popular. The problem is one of the things thinking about black. Again, going back to Malcolm, sorry. We're our worst enemy. We like this cool nonsense. We like it. We buy it. We buy it. You buy Nollywood, you buy Tyler Perry, you do all that stuff. But we're not supporting the serious work. There's 3 million of us in this country. That's enough to make a movie and sell it if people want to watch it. There's 40 million African Americans. There's bare people in the Caribbean. There's 1 billion people in the African continent. If we support our own serious content, there is a market. And that's but we have to work to build that, and independence is really, really, that's what independence really means, not just independent company. Have we got the links? Are we doing community there? Are we making, because there's plenty of us. Stop making excuses. As a community, we need to do much, much, much better. If we support black cinema that's serious, we can do that. But yeah, that may not mean you're not going to make millions upon millions upon millions. But why are you doing what you're doing? Is it to make good work, or is it to make lots and lots and lots of money?
Fantastic, yeah. It starts with the deprogramming. Once that happens, the rest should follow. Right, I'll take 2 more questions. You and then you.
My initial question was going to be talking about the kind of like era we had like 15-ish years ago, like your kidulthood, adulthoods and stuff like that. And I think Professor Andrews kind of answered that pretty succinctly, relating to, poverty kind of topics, right? But you mentioned something earlier about context, and I kind of wanted to kind of dig into that, because I personally, I watch TV, watch films, but most of the time I listen to music. And I feel like music has done a lot for my personal development in terms of knowing certain aspects about our history, life in general, etc., etc. So I'm trying to think of how context can be related to, films like A Kidulthood, Adulthood, or even A Top Boy, which, sorry, I do kind of enjoy. I'm sorry. I have my criticisms, but I do enjoy. But I guess the question is film more broadly, TV as well, I guess, mainstream, independent, take it where you want it, is that even a decent vehicle for that, for actually providing context? Because documentary certainly can. We watched The Story of Bones last year, really enjoyed that, and seared into my brain that whole island, just thinking about those people on that island. No Other Land just won an Oscar. That's obviously related to Palestine and Israel right now. So documentary is good because it obviously provides a lot of context, and that's kind of the point of documentary. But I'm just wondering if creative film and television, definitely probably not mainstream, but I'm even wondering independently, can actually provide that vehicle for context and actually help provide that to viewers that actually might be hungry for that kind of information. Because music and hip-hop and jazz and R&B have done that for me. I just wonder if film and TV can actually do that.
I think I have to come back to Michaela Cole's I May Destroy You. That blew my head off. I thought, how did that get made? You know what I mean? And the fact that she, not only that, she turned down Netflix. And she thought, no, hold on, I want my rights. I want my, royalties or whatever. She turned down $1 million from Netflix. And whatever she said, or however she said it, BBC listened and HBO listened and it got made. And it won awards. And so and she did it in her truth. It was semi-autobiographical. And she, in that, sorry for any spoilers, but in her fantasy, she killed the white man. Again, that's what she inspired me. She raped the white man. Sorry, again, for language. But, you know what I mean? It doesn't happen. And for her to do that, I felt empowered. I got my power back. I thought somebody's speaking for me. Come on now. But then you had Baby Reindeer. I thought, hello, this looks familiar, this plot. And then that was paid for by Netflix. And I thought, oh, is that watering down? Is that detracting from the power of I May Destroy You and the way it won all the sort of Golden Globes and the Emmys and stuff like that? But at the end of the day, yes, documentaries are fantastic. They're powerful. They can have social impact and change. But mainstream media, I mean, look at the adolescents right now. It's such a hit. And talking about incel. And I just think there is hope in TV. And I think she just pushed us along a bit further. I can't wait to her next piece of work. And I think she would probably have encouraged other female black auteurs and other marginalised filmmakers to, let me tell my truth and see what happens.
Yeah, and I mean, I'd say we should understand what the mainstream is, right? So I like Top Boy too, but I also like getting drunk. I know it's not good for me, but I still get drunk, right? Like, it's okay. Everything doesn't have to be serious all the time. And so, yeah, as bad as that stuff is, it has a place, right? But I do think, what you're saying, the kind of work that we need politically, is it going to be on BBC? Probably not, right? So then what are we doing? And now there's much more ways to make independent stuff, to screen it yourself, to put it on. So if we're saying that's important, how do we do it? How do we support it? How do we create a space? Because there probably isn't really that space now, but can we make that? And again, you're in the industry, right? How do we do it? Because this work is, because like, if you're thinking about how do you popularize political ideas, like I said, hip-hop, music, TV, film, it's really powerful. It's a powerful way to do it, but it is something we have to do for ourselves. Even though like Michaela Cole's work is good, it's a one-off. Like that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen all the time, right?
Yeah.
So how do we make that sustainable? That's by doing it independently.
We are getting, and we always have had, a lot of rappers turn to film. We had yesterday, we were doing Black Track, Kendrick Lamar is going to be in a film. The Weeknd is doing stuff. You know, male and female rappers in this country are turning into Bashi, bits and pieces for a while. Of course, I'll go back to Top Boy, sorry, but Kano. So their influence and bringing music audience and their influence to the film audience and TV, I think that's going to help. That's going to move us along. So I think there's hope in that, and we'll just keep on pushing, basically. I'll take our last question. Thank you so much.
Hi. My heart rate is so accelerated right now. I feel like obviously this is there's so much to talk about, but I think one thing that I would like to hear a little bit more about is this idea of white psychosis, because I think it's such a good way to put it, obviously because of how psychosis itself works, and obviously there's no cure for it, and it's something that I think about a lot, the way, because obviously I have to navigate these spaces, white spaces, and I work in an industry that promotes that psychosis and those narratives. And the part that I am curious about to see what you think about is not only these movies kind of propagate these ideas that are meant to, create a narrative around blackness and what that means not only to white people but also to the black people that consume that media. They have these characters, like black characters, to reassure them in their narratives, in their stories. They are the best friend. They are the wise grandma that, you know, leads the way and shows them how to attain all their dreams. And
The magical Negro.
Yes, exactly. So I think the question for me is there a way to change their frequency? You know, because it does feel sometimes like it's a radio and they are attuned to a different channel. Does that exist? Is that a utopia, this idea that we can address that psychosis? Yeah, I think that's my question, really.
I mean, sure, no. But so I mean, look, so part of the reason I wrote Psychosis, because I wasn't going to do a book, but I did a book because I thought about it. It was the way that we think about racism is as though it's a set of, you know, people have bad ideas, and if you educate them out of those bad ideas, then we can all move forward. This is not how racism works. The reason that these ideas are there is because it is the political economy, right? Like, we were enslaved, and the enslaving of us made the West, right? It literally built the West, right? Like, those poor kids you see in the flies right now, etc. They're poor because the West, are taking resources out of their countries and neo-colonialism, right? So you need us to be poor. You need racism. The system can't survive without racism. And so what a psychosis is a really important tool to keep. And I really want to stress, it's not just white people, it's us as well. We're here now. We're in the house. I make more money than most people in the whole entire world, right? So I'm not separate from this now. And so the psychosis is to delude us to thinking that we're going in the right direction, that racism's going to end, etc. And there's no way to educate that. All the evidence tells you, try and educate it, it doesn't work. Because you can't, it's like, this is why I like psychosis as a metaphor as well. Psychosis isn't really an illness itself, it's produced by another illness, right? And it reinforces that mental, it keeps you in this loop, right? You don't. And that's what the psychosis of whiteness is. The only way to get rid of it is to get rid of whiteness, the actual thing, which is the political and economy of whiteness, white supremacy.
It's a construct.
Yeah, it's a construct, but it's a construct to defend the economy. So if you don't change the political economy, you don't change the base, you'll never get rid of whiteness. Never get rid of whiteness. So the whole point of psychosis of whiteness actually is to say, we need black revolution. It's a revolutionary argument. You get rid of whiteness by having a different political and economic system. There is just, psychosis is impenetrable. Like if you were talking to somebody in a grip of psychosis, you wouldn't try to reason with them. You just understand that's not going to work. You do something else, right? And that's how we have to attack whiteness. That's it.
Fantastic. Yes, round of applause. I think we'll end our lecture there, our provocation there, and I hope, do you collectively feel a bit better after that? Was that cathartic for you too? Was it just me? You know, spend a little less of your therapy bill now? Because that, I feel, woosa! I feel a bit dolce right now. But yes, another round of applause for Professor KehindeAndrews. His time is precious. He came all the way down here and you have to go all the way back up. But please catch the film later if you can. We're going to lunch now and I really hope you enjoy the rest of your day. But please be encouraged. We can do this together. Let's work together and, yeah, be happy, for God's sake. We've only got one life. So thank you for now and enjoy lunch. Be back afterwards. Bye.